Today, we're going to be talking about linking and then bringing that linking knowledge into specific collation practice. So it's quite a lot to cover, but I think we will be good. Before we begin, I would like to acknowledge I'm in a different spot than I usually am. I'm currently in my home province and very privileged to be here on Treaty 7 territory. I'd like to acknowledge that I'm on the land of a few different peoples, the Blackfoot Nations, consisting of the Piikani, Siksika, Kainai Nation, along with the Tsuut'ina Nation and Nakota Nations, including the Chiniki, Bearspaw, and Goodstoney or Wesley Nations, along with the Métis Nation of Alberta. Especially as we're getting close to the National Day for Truth and Reconciliation. I think it's really important to be acknowledging that and thinking about how we're incorporating decolonization into our working practice. I'd like to introduce myself as well. If you haven't seen me before, I'm Navarra. I've been talking a lot at these, but if this is your first time coming to one of our technical sessions, welcome. I'm the LEMDO project manager and also our lead trainer right now. I'm the author or co-author of many of our linking documentation pages. So, when you're going and reading those, you can almost hear them in my voice some of the time. That is me behind those pages. I'm also very big into knitting outside of my work life. So I'm often fidgeting. You might see my hands moving around all over the place. And if that's you as well, you like to be moving around, fidgeting, anything like that while we're in this webinar, please feel free. Today, we're going to be going over quite a few things, and by the end of it, you'll have a lot of new skills. The first thing that you're going to come out of today with is you're going to understand the hash character. I'm going to try to call it the hash character throughout. I might also call it the hashtag. You might also know it as the pound sign. That's all the same thing. That's the hash character. You're also going to know how to create pathways using the hash character, and then use the target attribute on linking elements so that you can go down the pathways. You're going to know when you want to use the pointer element and when you want to use the ref element as your linking mechanisms, and also how to incorporate the pointer element into prose. You'll know when to use type equals local sit on your pointer elements. You'll know how to link to our site-wide bibliography using the ref element. And you're going to be able to make your collation links from your app element to anchor elements in your modernized text. And also, actually, I haven't put into the learning objectives, but also how to link to your witness list. That's an awful lot to get through, but it's all connected and you all will be able to get this, I'm sure. We're going to begin off with our introduction to the hash character. So what are pathways and how do we create them? The hash character is pretty straightforward in its basic use. It creates a pathway. And it tells the processor where to look within a file. So if you're creating a pathway, you're telling the processor, hey processor, within this file, I want to look for a thing. I kind of think of the hash character as if you're going down a river and there's, a island in the middle of the river, and so it splits off in two directions. The hash character is that island in the middle that splits you off into different directions. Your file is your river, and then your specific thing that you're linking to are the little streams that come off of it. And because we tell the processor that we are looking within a file, it's going to save processing power. So instead of the processor having to look through everything in the LEMDO ecosystem, which is an awful lot, we're saying, hey, I want to look in my modernized file. So it doesn't have to search through everything. It just goes straight to that file. And then within that file, it goes to the specific thing that you're linking to. What that actually looks like in practice, and I'm going to use Act 3, Scene 1, Speech 1 from Henry V. What that looks like is, if we're linking to this unto the breach speech, we're going to find the name of the file. Here it is. Just at the tab at the top of Oxygen. Now, I will note the file name and the XML ID are the same. The thing that you're technically linking to is the XML ID, but because they're the same, this is the easiest way to find it. And it's way quicker to say file name than XML ID a bunch. So I just say find the file name and then find the thing that you're linking to. Here's the speech. I've kind of simplified it in the encoding. But here it is, once more unto the breach, dear friends. And here's its XML ID. This is what the link goes to. It finds an XML ID. And then you put that all together with the hash character. So you take your file name, here it is, emdh5_fm. So what we found in the step 1. And then you add your hash character, and then you add your path, your target XML ID, sorry. So to break that down, we begin off by saying, hey processor, I want to link to something. It's in the file called emdh5_fm. Then we add our hash character, and that says, within that file, I'm looking for a thing. And that thing is the thing with XML ID emdh5_a3_s1_s1, which is quite a mouthful. And the processor knows, okay, I'll go down that pathway to find this speech that you want to link to. A pathway looks a little bit different when you're just linking within a single file. So let's say we were in the general introduction of device of the pageant, and we wanted to link from somewhere in that general introduction to the critical history section in it. There's a div, and it's the critical history div. Well, it's pretty simple. We don't need the file name anymore. We just need to know what we're linking to. Here it is, the critical history div. And we get that XML ID from it, emd_dev3_genintro_crit. And we put it after a hashtag. So when we have just the hash character, no file name in front, the processor is pretty smart. It knows we want to link within the file we're already in. We're linking from the same file that we're linking to. Then we put the target XML ID because that's what we're actually linking to. Are there any questions so far?
There are no questions in the chat.
Okay. All right. So the next thing that we look at is the target attribute. This is what kind of makes the link. So target can be used on either the pointer or the ref element. And you'll see pointer is spelled PTR. That's pronounced pointer. That's what it stands for. Ref is for reference. And target tells the processor what you're linking to. So it's what actually does the link. It can have a few different things as its value. The first one is pathways. So if you're linking to your own stuff, it can be a link to a LEMDO database, or it can be a link to an external website and have a URL as its value. We have a few prefixes that we can use with target. They are doc, bibble, and prod. Today, we're really going to be talking about doc and bibble, but I think it's worth also saying that prod exists. Doc : is used to link to LEMDO documents, hence why it is doc. So if it's a thing in your edition, or if you're an anthology lead, if it's one of your anthology about pages, you're going to be using doc. And that tells our processor we're linking to a document. If you're linking to our shared site-wide bibliography called Bibble1, you're going to use the Bibble prefix, Bibble : Every time that you have a citation in your text and you're wanting to link back to that source, you're going to use that Bibble : prefix. Prod links back to our production database, prod1. It's like the bibliography database, but for production specifically. And what you put after the prefix. After doc : you're going to add your pathway. So if we were doing the exact same link, we wanted to link to that unto the breach speech from Henry V, we're going to have target equals doc : we need that prefix, and then our pathway, the file name, the hash character, and the XML ID of the thing that we're linking to. If you're linking to Bibble, you're going to get the XML ID for your source from Bibble1, and we'll look at how to do that in just a second. But what it's going to look like is target equals Bibble : Alex1. Prod looks very similar. You're going to get to the XML ID for your production from prod1. For example, your target equals prod : MUAT1. Now, an important note, we only link to things that are already published. So if you're linking to another LEMDO edition and it's inside of your own anthology, link to it if it's already been published on the LEMDO platform, or you are certain that it's going to be published at the same time as yours. If you're not certain, reach out to one of your anthology leads or to me or Janelle, and we will help kind of guide you through that. If you're linking to a LEMDO edition outside of your anthology, only link to them once they've been published and they have a URL that isn't on the LEMDO dev site. So linking to websites, there are 2 times that you're going to be doing this. Number 1 is if you're linking to a LEMDO edition outside of your anthology. Let's say you are the editor for Henry V and you want to link back to famous victories of Henry V because that is, of course, a very important source text. You're going to link to the URL for that. Also, if you're linking to an external site, of course, you're just going to link to the URL. What that looks like, and we always include the HTTPS : / if you're linking to a LEMDO site, it looks just like this. You copy and paste the URL from the browser search bar. And here's one linking to the mom's anthology to temp3. If you're linking to another website, just grab that URL and put it into the target value. I think this is perhaps the most straightforward type of link to do. And this is my favorite link that we've ever done in an actual LEMDO anthology. It was to a page called Ostrich Facts. So I always like to include that. All right, I'm pausing again for questions. Okay, I'll continue on. Next, we have the pointer element. This is what we use when we're linking within a single edition. So the pointer element is kind of special and fun. Can you use DOIs as well as URLs? We have another element for linking to DOIs. Right, Janelle, we use IDNO for the most part. Yeah.
Yeah, and if you do tag something with IDNO type equals DOI, it will make a link to Crossref.
Yeah.
Which is the clearinghouse for DOIs. But we wouldn't use them in this particular context, the one that Navarra is talking about today.
Okay, so pointer is a fun element, and it's fun because it's self-closing. So instead of having an opening tag and then a closing tag, it has a tag, and it's got that slash at the end of it there. We only use this when we're linking within a single edition. So you want to link from a critical paratext in your edition to your modern text, or from a critical paratext to another critical paratext. That's when you can use pointer. And it programmatically supplies hyperlinked text. So that means you're not typing in what you want to appear on the published site. That's going to be provided for you based on what you put in your pointer. So you're going to use it if you're linking within your edition and you're linking to a div element that has a child head. If you're not a mom's show, so you're like a play, a Shakespeare play, NISE, DRE, and that sort of thing. If you're linking to an act or a scene or a speech or something inside of a speech. And if you are a mom's editor, you can use it to link to divs if the divs have a child head. So what that looks like, if we go back to this Unto the Breach speech, here we are, and we want to link to it from, let's say, a general introduction. The first thing that you're going to do is you're going to add your pointer element. Then you're going to create your pathway. We already did that. We have our file name, our hash character, and then that XML ID that we talked about. And then you're going to add that target attribute onto your pointer. So you've got pointer, target, dot colon, because we always need that prefix when we're linking to a document, and then the pathway. Now, this looks pretty weird, but don't worry, the website isn't going to say see also pointer target. It will supply text, and we'll look at exactly what it will supply in just a moment. Because we do have a special case. Linking to acts, scenes, and speeches using pointer, Martin wrote some pretty cool processing using the type attribute, where when you add the type attribute and give it a value of local sit, and you're linking to an act, a scene, or a speech, it's going to kickstart some cool processing. So this pointer that we have here, see also, and then we're linking to that Unto the Breach speech. We're going to have pointer, type equals local sit, and then our target and pathway. So what happens with that? Because that looks pretty wonky. Well, if we're linking to something that has type equals local sit, we're going to kickstart our ASSP processing. That's our act, scene, speech processing. So that pointer that we just made, which is missing a prefix here, I always miss adding that in when I update this slide. But imagine that there's a prefix doc colon here. If we take that pointer that we just created on the website, it's going to look like this: A3, SC1, SP1. And this is the standard citation format that LEMDO has decided works the best for our platform. And it's just going to make it really consistent across your edition and across the entire platform, which is going to make for an easier experience for all of our audience members. If you're linking to a div that has a child head, what happens with it? Well, it pulls the text node of the head element and gives that as the hyperlinked text. So if we're in the Henry V general introduction and we're linking to this theater and kingship section of that general introduction, it's going to take what's in the head element, which is theater and kingship, and that's what goes on the website. The perk of using the pointer element here is that if you go back and you say, oh, I don't like the title theater and kingship anymore, I really want it to be kingship and theater, you can change that in your general introduction, and anywhere that it has linked to it is going to automatically update. You don't need to go and fix everywhere else. If you've used the pointer, it's always going to match because we're always building that new site, and then it stays static, and then we build the new site once it's ready to go again. So if you've updated in your head element, it's going to update in your links as well. Okay. We do have another linking element, and that's the ref element. And this is for everything else. It does have a text node, so you get to put in what you want it to say on the website. You're going to use it if you're linking to other LEMDO editions that aren't your own, if you're linking to things that aren't an act, a scene, or a speech, or a div with a child head, if you're linking to a site-wide database, such as the bibliography, if you're linking to an external source, or if you want to control the text that gets hyperlinked. So if you don't want to have whatever gets pulled from the head's text node, you might want to use ref instead. In practice, what that looks like, if you're linking to another LEMDO edition, you're going to add your ref element, like we do here, and then create the pathway. If we're linking to just the modern text, it's really straightforward. That's the pathway. It's just the modern text. And then you add your target attribute. The target here is, of course, going to have that .: prefix and then the pathway. And that's it. If you've linked to that modern text. And it's within your own anthology. If you're linking to Bibble 1, you're going to add your ref element. And you'll notice here that the ref element has gone inside of the parentheses, but around both the name and page number. You're then going to add a type attribute with a value of Bibble. And that says to a processor, hey processor, I'm linking to the bibliography. You're then going to go into the bibliography and find the XML ID of your source. Now, how you do this is you go on to the LEMDO website, the Jenkins LEMDO dev site, go to resources, and under there is a thing called bibliography. Click that, and you'll be brought to our full bibliography. Command F or Control F and search for whatever you're looking for. I recommend searching in at least 2 ways because our bibliography is really long and we're working with early modern stuff a lot of the time, so the spelling might not be exactly what you've put in. So I usually will search by last name and then a keyword from the title is usually what I'll do to find it if I don't find it at first. But once you've found the thing that you're linking to, you're going to grab the XML ID, and that's just this 4 letters and a number sticking off to the right of the page. Every single source that we have in our bibliography has one of these, and just copy that, and then add your target. So you're going to have target equals Bibble prefix, and then that XML ID that you grab from our bibliography. When you're linking to an external site, add your ref element. Here it is. They wanted to add a ref around the entirety of this section, this citation. And then you put the target attribute with that very long URL for this particular one. And I've noted once more, please do include https://. Okay, are we all feeling comfortable and confident with this part? Okay, I'm going to take that as a yes, and if there are questions, please do ask them. So let's move into the actual collation part. There are 3 things that we really link to in collations, or that we tend to link to in collations. The first is from our list of witnesses to the bibliography, Bibble 1. We link from our lem and reading elements to the witnesses. And we link from our app elements to the modernized text. So 3 different types of links, but all of them you'll be able to do and figure out, no problem, I'm sure. If we look at a collation, one of the first things that you're going to see, because this is up by the TEI header, is your list wit. This is your witness list. It uses the list wit element, and this is the basic structure of it. You have your list wit element and then children witnesses. Each witness element is going to have an XML ID. You get to create that. It's going to begin with whatever the file name is. So EMD followed by the abbreviation for your edition. _M_collation is typically what a collation XML ID is going to look like. And then an underscore and something that's going to help you remember what this is. For F1, I usually put F1. first folio of Shakespeare, because I find that's easy to remember and everybody's going to know what it means for the most part, at least who's working in these files. Then you're going to add an N value. And what this N value does is, in our processing, when we put your collation up onto the website, you go to a modern text and you click the little collation symbol, you get a pop-up or an extra window pane on the right-hand side of the screen. And each collation gets all of the witnesses listed. And the N value is where those come from. So if somebody clicks on a collation and it's by, or it's from the first folio, in the collation pane, it's going to say F1 as the witness. After your N value, you have a CORESP, and this links back to Bibble1. This is formatted the same as the other Bibble links that we've looked at. And each of your witnesses is going to get one of these. So I've got 2 examples here. The second one has an XML ID that ends in NOS, in the New Oxford Shakespeare, N equals Pruitt, and then the CORESP links to that in the bibliography. I think this one was for Much Ado About Nothing. So this is what it looks like. Your witness, XML ID, whatever you want that to be, it has to begin with the XML ID of your file. But then after the underscore, you can put whatever you like, your N value, and then your CORESP. And CORESP begins with that Bibble : prefix that we talked about for our bibliography. Again, this just links back to the bibliography. So when we open up that page on the LEMDO sites, if you click on the witness name, you get a little full citation at the bottom, so people know exactly what you're talking about or exactly who your witness is. Then once you're done with your list wit, you've linked to the Bibble1 for your sources, and you're moving on to the actual collation part. This is what each one is going to look like. You're going to have an app element. Your app has a from and a to attribute. And then you're going to have a lem element. That's your lemma, which must match exactly what's actually in your modernized file. And one or more readings. Readings have an RDG element. And I see some things come through in the chat. Yeah, so if a witness can't be found in the bibliography, so there are two cases where this might be the thing. Number one is it's not in the bibliography, but it should be. Email me, I'll get it added in. So let's say we didn't have the first folio in our bibliography, and you wanted to link to the first folio. It should be in there because you know it's a source that people are going to use and that you're going to want to use lots. Email me, give me the bibliographical information, and I will email you back with an XML ID. If it's something that's not in the bibliography and it shouldn't be in the bibliography, for example, if you're just saying, you know, specific copies usually don't need to go into the shared bibliography, or in pretty much every edition, there's going to be a witness that is just your own edition. That also doesn't need to go into the bibliography. When that's the case, I'm going to exit out of here and show you an example. Here we are. This is the famous victories of Henry V, collation. It is no longer self-closing. And hopefully this is big enough on the screen. There we go. It's no longer self-closing. We don't have a CORESP attribute. Instead, we just have our witness, our XML ID, and here it is. We tend to give it this ed. The N can be this edition, or it could be whatever you want it to show up as. And then in the text node, you'll put this edition edited by, this one's Matthew Martin, who I believe is actually here right now. Thanks, Matthew. I'm using your edition as an example here. And that's what it looks like. So if it's something that doesn't need to be into the shared bibliography, such as this, it's not self-closing anymore. Okay. All right. Okay, I'm going to go back to my PowerPoint. Does that answer your question, Naveed?
Naveed said thanks.
Okay, perfect. So in here we have two different attributes that are causing links to witnesses, and they are your source and your witness attributes. They link back to the XML ID that you create in your witness list. So in each of those witnesses, you had an XML ID. You're linking back to those from your collations. And here's what happens to them. So the basic structure is you put your attribute, and then you put a hash character because we're linking within the same file. So the hash character comes first, and then the XML ID that you created in your witness list. When you are in a lem element, so your actual lemma, the thing that's in your modernized text, you're going to use the source attribute. So your source equals hash character, EMD, your edition abbreviation, _M, _collation, _NOS. And that is your lem source attribute. If you're doing a reading, so something that's not what you used in your modernized file, you're going to use the witness attribute and then give whatever the XML ID is. Here's the one for F1. All right. So hopefully that makes sense. Yeah. Okay. It's going the wrong way. In that structure, we also had from and to attributes. And these are what link from your collation to your modernized text. They go on your app element, and they link to the start and the end of the string that you're actually collating. They're connecting that modernized text in your collation file, because in the LEMDO environment, we have two different files. We have the modernized file and we have the collation file. The modernized file is probably in your main folder, and your collation file is in your app folder. What these link to is anchor elements in your modernized file, which you will get to add. I have two notes on anchors. The first one is you can reuse the same anchor as many times as you'd like. So if you have an annotation and a collation and they're about the exact same string of text, use those same anchors twice. That's fine. But when you're doing your collation, the anchors must be around exactly what your lemma is. So you want to make sure that it matches what you've put into your collation, into your lemma in your collation. There's no harm in putting, anchors in to exactly match. It's fine if you have lots of anchors in your edition. You will have lots of anchors in your edition, and that's quite all right. So make sure that they match exactly what you actually are collating. And same with your annotations. When you add anchors for your annotations, make sure that they match exactly what you're annotating, because that's how those links are formed. And we want to make sure that we're being really truthful with our encoding about what we're collating and what we're annotating. So reuse them as many times as you'd like, but add them if you need to. The first step that we're going to take when we are encoding that app element and adding our from and to attributes is we're going to open both the collation and the modernized files. Now, in Oxygen, you have a few options for how you do this. You can have them just both open and take up the full screen and just, go between those two pages, no problem. You can also grab one of the tabs and pull it over to the side, and it will kind of click into spot like this, where one thing's on the left and one thing's on the right. You could also do top and bottom. You can also grab one of these if you have two screens and put it over on your second screen, whatever makes it the easiest for you to see what you need to see. But have them both open. Then you're going to find the string that you're collating. So find whatever your lemma is. Thanks again, Matthew. We've got famous victories here. But I will promise, I actually created a new file and just took this as an example, so I wasn't messing around in your encoding at all, don't worry. This is a sample file that just happens to be also famous victories. But here, this is the string that's being collated here is Ned and Tom. And you're going to add anchors on either side of Ned and Tom. Anchor elements are kind of fun. They're also self-closing. So although, sometimes we'll say wrap it in anchors, you're not actually wrapping it in an anchor element. You're adding two anchors, one on either side of your string. So anchor one is going to go at the front. If we're collating exactly Ned and Tom, we're going to add one at the start of Ned and one at the end of Tom. LEMDO does have a keyboard shortcut for adding anchors, which is really handy. And it is Control-Shift-A on Windows or Linux computers and Command-Shift-A on Mac computers. And the cool thing about this is it's going to automatically number. So anchors, what they look like is this. They've got your anchor element, it's self-closing, it has an XML ID attribute, and it's going to equal whatever the file name is. This one should actually be emdfv_m, and then underscore anc underscore 1, and same down here, underscore anc underscore 2. And when you use the keyboard shortcut, it will add those numbers in for you. So it could be number 5,986, and you wouldn't have to remember that that's the anchor number that you're on because it's automatically going to be added. The only exception to that is your first two anchors. So number 1 and number 2, you'll need to add the numbers for, but hopefully you can get to 1 and 2. But once you've added those first two, it's going to automatically number them for you. One other thing that I'll say about anchors really quickly is that when you're adding them, you're probably going to do multiple passes when you're adding anchors. You might add anchors for your collation, and then later on you'll come back and you'll add anchors for your annotation, and then later on you'll come back and you might add anchors for your critical paratexts. So physically in the file, anchor number 100 might come before anchor number 5. That's okay. No need to panic. It doesn't really matter. It's just there to give a unique XML ID. So once you've added these, I usually will just copy the XML ID and then go back to your collation file. And in your app, you have a from attribute. Add that first anchor. Use a doc : prefix because we are linking to one of your documents. So add that doc : prefix so the processor knows, hey, we're linking to a document, and then just paste in that XML ID. So we've gone from the start of your collation, from the start of Ned to the end of your collation, the end of Tom. And then our processor is going to add that little collation link sign to the end of that string. So it will come after Tom. Is this all comfortable for everybody? Any questions?
No questions in the chat so far.
Okay. All right, so let's kind of go over all of those things. And if you have questions as we go through our recap today, because it was a whole lot that we went through actually quite quickly, I'm looking at my clock, do please ask them. So the first thing we talked about way at the beginning of this was our hash characters. They're the things that create pathways to the things that we want to link to. The general syntax of them is going to be your target file name, followed by a hash character, followed by a target XML ID, unless you're linking within a single file, at which point your syntax is going to be a hash character and then your target XML ID. And I see that something did come in the chat.
Yeah, I'll read it from Lynn. although it's a bummer to have anchors in the wrong order when you call up the list of annotations separately from the text, because if it has not changed since I looked, they are listed in numerical order.
Oh, are they?
Will it be easy enough to renumber them? Do we have actually talked about renumbering them when an addition is done? Renumbering the anchors from 1 to 4,000 plus chronologically.
Yeah. Yeah, I suppose we could. I'm curious about that. I hadn't noticed that.
Yeah. And Christine says, I can't bring myself to have them out of order. I know editors are orderly people.
Yeah, for sure. It is the tricky part about anchors is most of our XML IDs are created to be, kind of a logical thing where you're naming it after whatever the thing is. So if you're giving an XML ID to a paragraph, well, it's going to be paragraph 1, paragraph 2, paragraph 3, because that's how we make them kind of readable. But with anchors, because they are really just there to be that wayfinding rock, they can be named whatever, and giving them numbers like this is how we've made it so that they're all unique. Which is, yeah, it is weird to look at. But it does make sure that your XML IDs are unique.
Okay, I'll raise a ticket
Yeah.
to have our annotations listed in the order they appear in the text rather than the number of the anchor. I hadn't even perceived that that was how they were being processed.
No, I hadn't noticed that either when I was proofreading. Yes,
Yeah, and
to renumber them yourself can be dangerous. Yeah. When you're getting up into the thousands with your anchors, to renumber them is a lot of work and a lot of remembering what numbers are, and would change what all of your links have to link to. So you're running the risk of a build break because you've, given the same XML ID to 2 different anchors, and also you might be breaking your links. So it is a risky path to take for sure. All right. I'm going to go back to our recap. So after we talked about our hash characters, we talked about the target attribute. And we're using this to link to things that are published. Published things only, please. We're going to use the doc, bibble, and prod prefixes for links within LEMDO. And your general syntax is going to be doc : followed by a pathway, and then bibble : followed by an XML ID. Same thing for prod. If you're linking to an anthology that isn't your own, so you're an NISE editor linking to a DRE edition, use a URL for your link. And if you are linking to an external site, also link using a URL. Pointer elements, use pointers within a single edition only within your edition. It's self-closing with text being programmatically added. And you can use pointer for act, scene, and speech links in non-MOMS editions, or to link to the text node of head elements for your links to div elements. When you're linking to those acts, scenes, and speeches or things within them, including if you put anchors into your modern text, your anchors are probably inside of a speech somewhere. Use that type equals local sit, and that will give you a nicely formatted ASSP link. Ref elements you're going to use those to link to other LEMDO editions, to link to the bibliography, the production database, and also to external websites. The benefit of ref is that it allows you to control the hyperlinked text in the digital edition, and also the parenthetical citation in your print edition if you have one. But the drawback is if you change whatever it is that you're linking to, let's say you renumber your speeches, you'll have to go back and, redo whatever is in the text node of ref. Whereas pointer will automatically update them for you and will match, the kind of standard style that we use. The other thing with ref is that when you are linking to the bibliography, use type equals bibble in your ref element. But you don't need to do that in your collation. So in your witness, you don't need it. In your ref element, you do. With collations, we talked about your list wit. So it has those child witness elements that link back to Bibble 1. And they're also going to be using that Bibble : prefix. We also talked about linking from your lemma and your reading elements to witnesses in your list wit using the source and witness attributes. And then finally, we talked about linking from collation to modernized files using anchor elements in the modernized file and from and to attributes in the collation file. Yeah, and so you can reuse anchors. Be careful that they are always around exactly what you're trying to collate. For resources, we've got quite a few in our LEMDO documentation. The place for general linking that you're going to want to refer to is chapter 6. I particularly recommend the principles, practices, and caveats of linking, the introduction to linking mechanisms. That's going to talk you through pointer versus ref, choosing linking mechanisms, which has a beautiful decision tree to tell you which one you should be using, pointer or ref, a guide to hash characters, how to create anchors, how to encode pointer links, and then integrating them into your prose. So what happens when you put a pointer in there, how to encode reference links. The other place that you might want to look is chapter 14. That's our collation chapter. Encode collations is really what we talked about today. There's plenty of other information in there for you as well. And I would like to acknowledge this is being funded by the Social Sciences and Humanities Research Council of Canada through a connection grant. Thank you to them. Thank you to me for slide design that we're using for all of these. Thanks to Martin Holmes for our TEI customization. Those beautiful, beautiful pointer links. I appreciate them every day. And to HCMC for our site design and hosting.